due to my military service and time in combat. We felt called to start SOF missions to serve our fellow brothers and sisters in arms, focusing on suicide prevention and resiliency. Our mission at SOF Missions is to empower warriors to find purpose and be resilient. Since 2011, when we started the organization, almost 3 million men and women have deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan. Unfortunately, the scars of war take a toll on their psychological, physical, social, and spiritual health. Many veterans feel a sense of hopelessness and a loss of purpose when they return to civilian life. They feel isolated and alone, unable to reconnect. And in the greatest of tragedies, over 20 veterans lose all hope and take their own lives. Our goal at SOF Missions is to provide veterans the tools and resources so that they don't become a statistic. We offer a unique approach to combating veteran suicide through a whole health intradisciplinary model. The Be Resilient program is a 4-pillar methodology that addresses the areas of psychological, physical, social, and spiritual wellness. We provide care through 3 delivery methods: medical clinics, retreats, and educational training. Since we started back in 2011, we have been able to reach veterans in all 50 states and have served over 3,000 veterans through the Be Resilient program. Being resilient is a multifaceted and complex issue. We know that to find a lasting solution, we have to address the whole warrior. Many challenges cannot be solved by providing the treatments and modalities of just one component, but by tackling them all. Now, we've expanded our services to include law enforcement and first responders. Together, we can make a lasting impact in the lives of warriors across the nation. To learn more, visit our website at sofmissions.org.
Proceed to your post assignment. All units proceed to your post assignment.
All right. Welcome back.
Misfit Nation, Misfit Nation, the Misfit Nation show.
We are a show founded by a veteran and hosted by 2 veterans and a military spouse. Our mission is to get people to tell their stories to the world. If you're an author, share your tips with the Misfit Nation. If you're a musician or an actor, our audience needs to know how they too can get into the business. Coaches, we love our coaches. Come on and share your tips with the Misfit Nation to help them become better versions of themselves. If you are a corporate leader or an entrepreneur, come on and show how you did it and how hard you have fought for success. If you are a veteran, first responder, or Gold Star family, we would love to have you come on and share your story with the Misfit Nation. We always have time for you. If you're feeling down, alone, or starting to see the darkness, Stop. Think about those who are around you. You are not alone. You will be missed. If you feel like your problems will be a burden to those in your inner circle or feel embarrassed, dial 988. If you are a veteran, take option 1. We need you to keep pushing forward. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you are a new listener, welcome to the Misfit Nation show. Be sure to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast app. Also on our YouTube channel at @the_MisFitNation. Subscribe and click the bell to keep you up to date on our latest episodes and all of our news. You can also find us on Heroes Media Group and About Face Radio. Now, let's get to the show!
All right. Welcome back to the Misfit Nation show, your Thursday after dinner show. And we are live from Tennessee doing what we do. Camera's acting funky right now. Must have froze with the snow. We'll work on that. Here we go. She's back. But we are live in Tennessee doing what we do. Thank you for taking your choices tonight and picking us over the Thursday night football game or whatever other sport you wanted to watch tonight. Tonight, we have a more disheartening news coming in the world. A 33-year-old man decided to end his life in the parking lot of the Audie Murphy VA down in San Antonio, Texas today. As you recall, just last April, another 54-year-old man did the same thing in that same parking lot. This is no longer just a number of 22. This is more of the pandemic than that COVID thing was. We're losing way too many veterans. We're losing way too many people. If you are feeling the darkness, don't hesitate to reach out to your inner circle. Let them help you before it's too late. If you don't want to tell your friends, those 3 names that are on that little card that's in your wallet, dial 988. Get the help you need. Let someone help you. If they don't help you or you don't want to talk to them, contact us here at the Misfit Nation. info@themisfitnation.com, jake@themisfitnation.com, or steven@themisfitnation.com. We'll keep you on the line until we can get to your help you need. We don't need another statistic like today. A day tomorrow with you is 100% better than one without you. Let's get through this, men and women. All right, Misfit Nation. I told you it was solemn. It's not a good thing. It's not something that we love to deal with every day. It's a horrible news story. But tonight we have a great story of a United States Marine Corps veteran. His life is all about vision, intention, and purpose. Like I said, he is a USMC veteran, 4-time bestseller, and the founder of the Strategic Boardroom, where he guides Christian entrepreneurs and married business owners to build systems that actually support their values and their families. He's the creator of the V.I.P.E.R framework, which we'll go through during the show, a method designed to help leaders align their vision and execution with what truly matters. He isn't here to preach hustle culture. He's here to teach clarity, balance, and faith-centered leadership. So without further ado, let's welcome Mark Dolfini to the Misfit Nation show. Welcome, Mark.
It is a true pleasure. Thank you so much for such a warm welcome. It's great to be here.
It's outstanding. It's outstanding to have you here. I was getting worried you weren't going to make it in. Thought the snow got you. But thanks for being here.
It would be the ice, not the snow.
Yes. All right.
We had ice last night.
Woo. Where are you at, Mark?
Indiana.
Oh yeah. So you're just north of us up there. Okay. Probably a little further north than I'm thinking, but you're up there. I just gave you the elevator pitch story about you right here, Mark. If you don't mind, give us a little more about you from as far back as you want to go through your Marine journey to how we got here.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's important to maybe start way back. I love the veteran focus on this because it is sad. I lost a brother to taking his own life, and he was a veteran, and we weren't super close. But it hits different. So the fact that you bring this up, and of course we all get dark, we all get gray,
right? But
those gray days come. But knowing that you've got a tool in your toolbox to reach out to folks, that's why I think this work is so important, so incredibly important, and to be vision focused and to have people in your life that no matter how dark things get, they're always going to be there regardless. So for me, my journey started way back. I grew up in New York, so I grew up there. I finished high school. I was at the top 98% of my class, and if you do the math there, I'll let that math sink in. I was almost dead last in my class. So I was at the very bottom of the graduating class. So I just figured out how to do the least amount of work and still be able to graduate. And I figured that out. I dialed that in, and that did catch up with me. So I went to 13th grade, which is community college, and decided I originally planned to join the Army, and then a Marine recruiter came in, and I just I don't really know anything about the Marines, and went and sat with them, and I was like, man, this is my home. This is where I belong. And the Marines were very, very good to me. I actually scored quite well in the ASVAB to the point where I could actually pretty much get any job that I wanted, which was available. So I went in open contract, which, if you understand, I don't know, do they allow open contracts anymore? I don't
think so.
So open contracts, for anybody that's maybe a little younger, you go in at the need of the Marine Corps or the needs of the military. It's pretty risky.
Yes. 0311.
Yeah. So I'm not a real big guy. I'm 5'7", and my driver's license says 140 pounds. So we're going to go with that one. But, you know, I'm not a real big guy. So me humping a mortar plate was, you know, I mean, it was just as equally as possible as anything else. But because my scores were pretty high, they selected me, kind of shoved me into aviation, and then kept shoving me further and further right until I was in this super specialized crew member role on a C-130, where I was a celestial navigator. And these guys were, I mean, you want to talk about some of the smartest, brightest, fastest thinkers you've ever met. These were navigators on the C-130s. And so anyway, it was really important that I had to learn to think for myself, even though all this head trash growing up through high school, thinking I really wasn't. I was just a cut up. I was just thinking I wasn't worth much. But the thing was that when it came down to it, I was able to prove to myself that I could think and I could do things. And I went on the other side of that, went to college and started doing a lot of things that I was actually worthy of. So it's just interesting, just going down that journey and getting out of my own head, getting out of my own way, and how the Marine Corps was good for me in that aspect.
Outstanding. And being the top 98% of your class, and I'm sure there's a lot of other guys in the Marine Corps with you that were probably maybe the 99th percentile.
They might have been. I mean, we shared a lot of things, being in that percentile.
Definitely. But you made it through that. You pushed forward, and even though you had the odds stacked against you because of how you studied in school,
yeah,
you kind of pushed over that, and now you went through the Corps. You excelled in the Corps, getting a specialized position on the C-130.
Yeah.
And now, what led you to where we are now?
I would love to say that it's just one of those linear progressions where you're just like, oh, because of this, then this, and then because of this, then this. It was kind of like, again, one of those things where you've heard it before, like, hey, this is my plan, and this is God's journey for me. And I went.
Can you hear me, Mark? Seems like Mark's having technical difficulties. Once he comes back, we'll get him back in here. Here he is. He is back. There he goes. Let me go to my shorter move. There we are. All right, Mark, you're back.
Okay, sorry about that.
We'll get second Mark off there.
Yeah, we had the power just flickered here. I don't know what happened.
All that ice you wanted.
Yeah, no kidding. So anyway, sorry, I lost my train of thought there trying to get back on here.
Powers that be. You're talking about the higher power or higher calling, all the stars aligned.
Yeah, how the stars aligned. I was, I kind of went through all this horrific crap, and during the period of time, I was, I graduated from Purdue with a degree in accounting, and I did okay in school. Again, I wasn't like top of my class or anything like that, but for a kid that literally graduated almost dead last in high school, I did okay. I was a solid, AV student. I did all right. It certainly wasn't breaking any records, but I did okay. And on the other side of that, I got out, started working for the corporate world, and I realized like this just was not the best, working in the corporate world wasn't the best fit for me. So I really enjoyed, learning where my true strengths were. And when I started getting into more into real estate, I was coming out of the other side of the corporate world. I realized I fit in there like a square peg. And really what helped me make that decision was 9/11. I remember being in St. Louis in that period of time. I was working for the Marriott. Marriott's a wonderful company to work for. And I was the assistant controller at the airport property there. And I recall driving to work and hearing that a plane had hit the World Trade Center. And having grown up in New York, I was like, wait a minute, that's a pretty big building. Like I was thinking that what everybody was thinking was a little puddle jumper, was it foggy? Like there's no way you can miss that. Like was a pilot in distress. And of course we found out, by the time I was almost to work, we found out what had happened, the second plane. But that made me realize, that was an impetus for me to recognize that I needed to get out of this job, that I just was not fulfilling what it was that I needed, what it is that I wanted. So I got out and I was buying real estate at the time, still working a job. And when I went into the the recession in 2008, I had about $6.5 million worth of real estate that I had built through a hodgepodge of wheeling and dealing and creative financing, only to get to the other side of that. And I turned that $6.5 million in portfolio, the $6.5 million portfolio, into about $1.5 million in about 8 months. So for my next trick, it was horrific. And that was the thing that really stuck out for me in that learning experience. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, why am I going through this? Like, this was just horrific. But all during that time, I realized that these were just learning experiences for me to go through. And looking back, and it wasn't within 6 years after that I had published my first book, which was The Time Wealthy Investor. And I published a series of books after that. And the book, The Time Wealthy Advantage, which was my latest major book, and published several minor books after that. So I'm working on my 9th book right now, which is around business leadership for the small business entrepreneur. And all of those things that I can write about is just all the stuff I did wrong, and how I hope that I can somehow show someone else to do this in a different way, and in a way that's not the stupid way that I did it.
Outstanding. And sometimes those hiccups or those setbacks, they create us. They create our walls. They create the buildings that we're in, and help us to come to the other side, like you have.
Yeah.
And I mean, you said 9th book. That's a lot of books. And you sent me the last one, the One Time Wealthy Advantage, along with the 2 workbooks.
Yeah.
I got them downstairs. My wife wants to read them first, of course. So she gets to dive in and read them, and then I'll be able to read them and then tell her what it says. So
You're right.
But she goes first, as we all know. And but thank you for the gift anyway. That's awesome. And I'm just astounded that you have 9 out there, or on your 9th one. It's a lot of work. For those who don't know, it's a lot of work to put these things together, and especially what you said you're doing it for, to help others not make the same errors or have the same setbacks you did. Do you wish someone did that for you on your climb up?
Yeah, and a lot of people did. The problem is, humility is a pretty heavy burden to carry. Yes. When you're trying to carry things like pride and arrogance alongside with it. So usually humility is the first thing out of your pack when you're humping. And that's the thing that I wished I had learned a little earlier, is the fact that I didn't need to know everything. And it was okay that I didn't know it. And it was okay that I showed that I didn't know it. But during that period of time, I was also recognizing that as I was being put back in that forge, that I did need to reach out for help, that I couldn't pull myself out of that darkness by myself. And I did. I got real low, but I had some really, really good friends that reached out to me and just were checking in on me all the time. And and this is why it's so important to have that network in advance, because many business owners, especially vets who are business owners, generally what I see among business owners, and particularly veteran business owners, is that they're really smart and they have a really good work ethic. And the problem with that is that they're really smart and they have a really good work ethic. Right? Because they think, hey, I'm smart, I can figure this out, right? Adapt and overcome, right? All that. And they think that every problem that shows up is a problem for them to solve.
Right.
Dude, what did you learn in the military? Like use your leadership. It's not a who question. It's not a how question. It's a who question. and not every question and not every problem that shows up at your door as a business owner or as a business person is yours to solve. It needs to be solved, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to solve it. And because you have a really good work ethic, they'll work 22 hours straight on solving that problem. And meanwhile, everything else behind them is on fire, like. So ask me how I know. I'm just, I think I
have
knew
the burns. Yes. And I think the other thing, you mentioned pride before, and not being humble enough to say you need help.
Hmm.
A lot of veterans will not ask for that help, and they'll try to do everything themselves in that business, or they won't let an assistant manager take over, or the manager, as they're the executive, take over and just sit back and say, okay, what did you do to fix it? And that's a big thing that gets our heads, that we have to do, like you said, 22 hours a day, and then everything else is on fire because you're trying to fix that one problem, and all the other ankle biters just launched on you, around you.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hard to get them all out.
Yeah. It really is. And that's when things like stuff at home starts falling apart, and things, faith takes a backseat because there's not time for church. There's just stuff like that. And I'm not a, punch you in the mouth Jesus kind of guy, but faith is a big deal. It's foundational for me because I've been on the other side of that, where me and my bride were just a train wreck. And, it like, Hindenburg crashing into the Titanic sort of thing. And it was just, we were horrible. And we had no reason to survive our marriage. And the thing was, like, the reality is, when things aren't right at home, things aren't right anywhere.
Right.
And I know what happens a lot of times is when things aren't right at home, you don't want to go home. So you end up finding reasons to work an additional 8, 10, 12 hours, even though you don't necessarily have to. And what destroys love isn't hate. What destroys love is hurry.
Yeah.
And that, you're hurrying around, and I get it. We have 3 kids, a 20-year-old, a 17-year-old. Those are the boys. And then we have a 3-year-old little girl.
Woo. What happened?
And I'm 53. Like, I did not do the math on that equation.
There's that 98% again.
But she got the best of the 2%. I'll tell you that. She's a great kid, and and we have great kids. The boys are phenomenal. They're doing good. They're doing well. And for the stage of the life that they're in, we're super proud of them. And Lily, she's just a lot of kid, man, but that's the thing, that I want to spend as much time as I can being intentional with them and being present with them. And when you're hurrying around, you're not present, you're not taking that time. So that's where I feel like it's just really important to be intentional and have that time wealth, have that ability where that business delivers your vision, not you working for it.
Yeah, I think the great Ferris Bueller once said it. You have to stop every once in a while, look around, or you're going to miss stuff. And that's what
a great philosopher. Yeah,
he was amazing. 1985, I think 84, 85. He brought that up. But
that's right.
That's a quote that it lives on, because
it does.
You have to stop. You have to stop, smell them roses, look around you, and soak it all in, or you're going to miss stuff. Especially now you have a little one there, a 3-year-old. You're going to miss stuff, and that's a lot of moving stuff at that age. And it's going to just get faster. With a girl, it's always faster, and the wallet gets a lot thinner. But you're going to be all right. I feel good.
That's right. Got to sell a lot more books.
Yes, definitely. Or Girl Scout cookies as she gets older.
Hey, whatever. Yeah.
Put us on the list. In the beginning of the show, I talked about your V.I.P.E.R method. Mm-hmm. Let's dive into how you got into the V.I.P.E.R, how you came up with the V.I.P.E.R framework, and what led you to come up with it and make it, I guess, stick.
It originally started as the V.I.P.E method in my first book, The Time Wealthy Investor. The Time Wealthy Investor was written for mom and pop type operations who had rental businesses and were or property management companies, and were just buried in the day-to-day stuff. And if anybody has a number of rentals, or if they're doing that full time, it becomes very much a full-time job. And usually what happens is that because they're doing all this operational stuff, they get to a certain point, they can't grow, they don't have the infrastructure, they're very time weary, and what they have done is create this miserable job for themselves that they can never take a vacation, they can never be without their cell phone, they can never just be off. And I remember those days very, very well, that every time my cell phone rang, I just got that awful feeling. And oh man, it's just what is it now? And who, what's the excuse du jour? Your grandmother died again, or your cat needs a whiskerectomy, it's just all this stuff, right? So after recognizing all the 5 million mistakes that I had made, I got to the other side where I was doing property management and we were doing pretty well. And I really felt a shift in me that I felt like I needed to do this. I wanted to write something. So I started to write, and that took me quite a while, but then I broke it down into this framework of, first and foremost, is vision. So one of the things that I look back at, and it was just so serendipitous how I landed in navigation of all things, because navigation it's basically mission planning. It's figuring out what the capabilities of this aircraft could do based on what needed to get done. And that was just super cool. And that's just the way I had always thought my whole life, kind of what's the end goal? What's the goal? And then what's the strategy? It's goal, strategy, tactic. What's the thing that where you're trying to go? What's the strategy to get there? And then what's the individual tactics that you're going to use to implement that, to affect that strategy. So for me, it was just very natural, navigation once I got to, beyond just the job, but more of the mission planning stuff, which is something I really, really enjoyed. But I also knew like my time was coming to the end of the Marine Corps, and I was, wanting to move on. But as a strategist in business, that stuff I lived for every day. And knowing how to navigate certain things was just really, really good. And I really felt like I had some really, really good officers, if you will, of the company that were really running things. And it just left me with not much to do. So, as every business owner goes through this identity crisis, when you've hired all your replacements and there's nothing left for you to do, it's a great place, but it's also extremely lonely, because you'll go in and start effing with things that you have no reason to be effing with. And they're like, dude, what are you doing? Stop messing with things. Go write a book or something, right?
You're good at that.
Yeah. Yep. So that framework, that VIP framework, is vision, infrastructure, process. And that's what I wrote about in that first book. And that really helped me gain a lot more clarity for the full V.I.P.E.R method, which was the addition to that, which is the execution and reporting. And the reason why the VIP method worked well in that book, in the Time Wealthy Investor, is because it was already laid out for property managers and business and landlords. And then as I expanded my own thinking, I thought, well, there's a couple pieces that are missing here. There's vision, there's infrastructure, there's process. So as I'm breaking that down, okay, that like vision is where you want to go. Infrastructure is the bones of the business. You've got processes. Let's see, that's the day-to-day stuff. Okay. And then I got thinking about it. I'm like, yeah, but there's more than just day-to-day stuff. If in the vision piece, you've got two components. In infrastructure, you've got a couple components there. There's process, which is tactical and strategic, which is kind of what I just laid out. There's got to be an execution piece, right? Because that's where all planning falls apart, is in execution. And then I'm thinking, okay, well, there's got to be some sort of accountability function. There's got to be some sort of reporting function. And that is how you just check and track your progress. So the V.I.P.E.R methodology, the V.I.P.E.R framework, from top down and back up again, it works. It works no matter what the business is.
That's outstanding. I think someone is asking a question of you from the audience here about the V.I.P.E.R framework. It's from, let's see if I get it to come up. There it is. At Medicoma Rules. How did your time in the Marine Corps influence the creation of the V.I.P.E.R framework? Thank you, Medicoma.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it was kind of, I think what it really helped with was the strategic planning part. And I'll explain that here in a second. So that you've got the vision piece, which has two components, right? Personal vision, business vision. The personal vision is where you want to go, right? It doesn't have anything to do with income generation or anything like that. It's like, what would your life be if you didn't have to worry about income generation from a day-to-day perspective? If you're looking at business vision is made up of 3 components, right? There's core purpose, core values, and client avatar. And core purpose is about specifically, what do you do? Like, what is your job? What problems do you specifically solve? And it's really important that you're as specific as possible, because when you're real loose on that, when you don't know the mission, I'll tell you what, the worst time in the Marine Corps, and I think every Marine knows where I'm going with this. My worst times in the Marine Corps was when I was when I was like at a duty station, and it was really super early, and no one knew, like we were just getting formed up. Like no one knew who was doing what. Everybody's dad was a congressman or a senator, right? It was just awful, right? Every dad was a billionaire, right? It was just one of those. It was awful. Literally, I was at separation company getting ready to be released, and I came in from Okinawa, and I think it was in San Diego. I don't remember, but I literally blocked this out. I tried to, and it was literally just 3 days of just finding stuff for us to do, because right. It was just terrible. So when there's no purpose, it was just terrible. And it doesn't translate into more clarity for your customer if you're not clear on your purpose, specifically what you will do and what you won't do. And so that's core purpose. Core values is, again, what is important to you about this business, and how would the world be worse off if you're no longer in business? And defining core values is really critical, because that's what defines company culture. And company culture and company brand are inextricably linked. You can't get around that. And when you have a real strong company culture, and that navigates and translates to the brand, that's a company you can sell. That's a company that has intrinsic value that will sell for more than what the value is in the balance sheet, or 3 or 4 times EBITDA or whatever. Like it'll be more valuable because there's a brand component to that. And then finally is the client avatar. So core purpose, core values, and finally core client avatar. And that's who you want to work with, right? And you break them down geographically, demographically, and psychographically, how they think. So that's the vision component. Infrastructure is the bones of the business, right? The desks, the chairs, the assets, right? And that's how you start to think about it. Like if you're going to, wage war, if you're going to affect battle, you got to know what the assets are. And that's really what the infrastructure is. Then you start, that's your desks, your chairs, your software, your phone systems, how you process credit cards, whatever, right? All that stuff. And when you get to process, like I mentioned earlier, has tactical and strategic. Tactical is the day-to-day SOPs, right? Everybody knows the standard operating procedures. Everybody knows how to do all that stuff. So it's your opening procedures or closing procedures, your, so you're asking the great question of like, how did my military stuff translate to us? It's SOPs, man. Like that's your day-to-day tactical stuff that you do every day. And the infrastructure and the tactical part of process, that's the system. That's the business system right there. So what you have in that moment is basically a warship, a battleship. And you're like, cool, well, great. But if you don't have a strategic plan, you're just gonna spend all of your days just whacking the closest alligator to the boat. You're not going to be strategic, and you're just going to kind of allow the winds of the economy to blow that boat wherever it's going to go. No, man, fire up the engines, go out of the harbor and make some trouble, right? Go fire off those 16-inch guns, right? So that's what strategic planning does. And that's where you have people, purpose, and promotion. And that critical element right there is like, you've got to have the right people to do the job that you can't do, to fill in the gaps where you're not strong at, right? You've got to have a purpose, a strategic purpose, which might be gain market share, to launch a new product or service. It might be vertically integrate into a certain market, right? Something like that. But that's the strategic purpose. And this is the main point here, is that strategic purpose has to align with your core purpose that we talked about in business vision, right? Core purpose, core values, client avatar. It has to align. Yep. It would be like, and if you don't align those two things, it's like if Starbucks started selling chainsaws. And they're like, well, why are we selling chainsaws? And no one knows. Like, no, everyone's very confused. But all of a sudden, it's like, I don't know. Do you want a chainsaw with that mocha? Like, do you hand it out with the blade? Hand it out? Like, Do you hand it out running? But that's just weird, right? And it's like, well, we can make money at it. That's the problem that I see with many business owners, because they think that that's because, well, I can make money doing it. It confuses the avatar, and which is the final P of the strategic planning, which you have people, purpose, and promotion. Promotion, you got to let the world know what you're doing, and you got to say it often. It's like every world's a teenager at that point. You got to repeat yourself a lot. So it's externally promoting yourself, but you've also got to tell your internal people, and you got to tell them a lot. So that people, purpose, and promotion thing around strategic planning, I know it sounds super simple, but that's going to capture about 90% of everything that you're going to need within a strategic plan. And then, of course, the final two components is execution and reporting, right? Execution, I like to have a daily 5, which is what are the 5 most critical needle moving activities that are going to get me towards my strategic plan. And then R is the vision piece, right? Measuring my activities, and of course, measuring my results of those activities.
Definitely. And when you said the execution and reporting, I said right there, that has to be from the Marine Corps. Execution reporting. Execute that plan, report, and you just had to roll it in there into the business sense and use some business words with it to make it come out. But it all linked right in. As soon as I seen that question, you said it weighs in.
Yeah.
Because that always comes to light in every mission you did while you were in the Corps, and then probably just the few years right after that, you always had that mission and purpose in your head. What are we doing today? How do we get through it? And how do we get to that finish line?
Yeah, that's right.
That's how we all operate as we come out of the military. And as we start those businesses and we have the dream book and say, I want to start the business X because I love doing that. That usually gets some people in trouble doing something that they actually love to do, like maybe opening a bar when you drink a lot. That's not a good idea.
Yeah.
What other things have you seen people trying to coach through business? What kind of mistakes have they been making that you can try to help them through?
So there's 2 main components to business that I have come to figure out. And it may be obvious to most people, but again, I'm a little slow because sometimes the orange crayon takes a little while to digest. You know, that's just the one that sits the heaviest on me. But the thing that I feel really strongly about is there's 2 main components to business. There's the systems component to a business, and there's the psychology component to a business. So systems and psychology, and they have a symbiotic relationship with one another. As complex and complicated as the systems piece can get, it also is pretty simple, right? It's infrastructure and process. There's really not much more to that. Psychology is a little trickier, because in a business endeavor, you have, and especially when you're dealing with an entrepreneur, solopreneur, or even a micro business owner. I call a micro business owner as someone who's got less than 20 employees. And trust and know, you may call them a micro business owner, but the level of complexity has multiplied by a factor of like 7,000, because now you're dealing with all these different emotions and all these different people, right? You're dealing with a bunch of different individual psychologies. So when you're looking at business, you know, you've got this psychology side of it. You're looking at individual and personal psychology, and you're talking about business and organizational psychology. So right now I'm in a PhD program for industrial and organizational psychology. Talk about Forrest Gump, man. I am literally like the brown shoe. Yeah, I am the brown shoe in this lot. But it's really been good. And it's really been stretching me in really, really interesting ways and good ways. But the individual psychology and the business psychology, you have to recognize, again, those have a very symbiotic relationship with one another. And the individual psychology, especially for the solopreneur and the small business owner, that really, really matters, because it's all the stuff that you bring as a human now is just going to be magnified when it shows up in business. And any limiting beliefs, any bad relationship with time, any bad relationship with money is going to show up in your business. That's just the way it is. It's like your business is an extension of you. Right. You can't look back at your business and like, where did you get that trait from? Well, it's 100% shared DNA from you. And that is where I think people don't take a hard enough look at their individual psychology and recognize how much that plays a role. because hard work will set that aside to a certain point. And then, but if you don't fundamentally trust people, I'm probably from a 1 to a 10. I'm probably closer to like a 6 out of 10 in terms of trusting people pretty quick. But if you're a person who just generally doesn't, that's going to be really tricky for you to turn things over and not be this micromanaging a-hole that, that anybody would actually want to work for and stick around with. So this is where the individual psychology piece and the organizational psychology piece, that's generally where things start to fall apart when people try to grow or they try to scale and they try to realize, like, why can't everybody just be like me? Well, because you're working for a tyrant. You're working for a maniac. and I worked for that maniac, and I'll tell you, it was terrible. He was never let me call in sick, and when I did, he called me on my BS. Like, it was just terrible, right? And you'd feel guilty for taking time off, and when you're at work, you're thinking about home. When you're home, you're thinking about work. You're never present. It's just that's that individual psychology piece that, had I figured that out earlier, I certainly would have been much more successful. But again, I don't begrudge the journey that I've been on, because I didn't do well in school and because I learned a little slower than everybody else. I think that makes me a really, really, really good teacher. And am able to communicate it in ways that people can go, yeah, I get that. I understand that. So I just think for anybody that's out there that's struggling is recognizing, I think personally that the silver bullet is education. Yeah. And I mean education. I'm going to go on a rant here for just a hot second.
I'll sit down.
Just take a knee. It's going to be, yeah, I'll let you know when you're ready. Take some water. But real quick, when people call it education, they think like, oh, I listen to podcasts when I'm, driving or something like that, which is great. But if I was to pull up your inventory of podcasts and I was to say, hey, 3 weeks ago, you listened to that podcast. What was that about? Yeah. Would you be able to tell me? How much did it transform you? Right. And if what you're doing is not transforming you, that's not education. And by the way, since we kind of started out on the track of talking about mental health, I look at when you're working with a counselor, a therapist, a psychiatrist, a psychologist, whatever, that's another form of education. It's teaching you how your brain works. It's teaching you how your mind works. And when I was seeing someone, I was like, oh, so that happens and then that happens. She's like, yeah. I'm like, cool. And then we had an amazing relationship. She was just a super, like, she just got it, right? But then every now and again, I'd call her back and say, hey, you got a few, can we chat? She said, sure, let's set up a session, right? And that was the way I really learned how my mind worked in terms of everything from ADHD to codependency. And then I started my own education. So I hear that a lot, like people like, oh yeah, I listen to audio, or I just can't do books. Okay. I get it. But I'm just saying, what are you doing to actually educate yourself and not just be entertained?
It's true. That's a great point right there. And while you were asking that, 2 questions came in. One, I think you just answered really well, but I'll just give them some airtime here. I'll throw them on here. Greg 82 said, what's the biggest mistake entrepreneurs make when their business starts growing faster than the systems? I believe you just answered that pretty well.
Well, if I can hit that for one just quick second here, right? One other thing, in addition to what happens, is that business owners will start growing faster than their ability to generate cash. Now, again, my background's in accounting, so I'm going to try not to get super nerdy on, balance sheet, income statement stuff here, right? But what happens? You're like, oh gosh, like we all the listeners just left. Sorry, Mark, we're not talking to anybody right now. Wow, you say the word accounting.
You have a crazy effect.
Like, wow, that is amazing. Yeah, let's talk about all the quotes from Lucius Seneca. But in the ability to generate cash, what happens is, because the owner tends to be so focused on growth and not paying attention to profitability, is that they start growing faster than their ability to generate cash to fund that growth. So many times what happens is they fund it with very expensive debt, which is credit card debt. And I say it's expensive debt not because it's expensive with credit with interest rates, but it's expensive based on the amount of dollars you have to pay back for the amount of dollars you borrow, right? So think about it. Let's just look at it from a very basic perspective. If I borrow money on a mortgage, for every $1,000 I borrow on a mortgage, a 30-year mortgage, it's roughly $8 per thousand, right?
Yep.
If I look at $1,000 borrowed on a credit card, right? The minimum payment is usually somewhere between 2 to 3% of the outstanding balance. So for that case, let's say it's 3%, that's $30 per thousand. That is extremely expensive money on your cash flow.
Yes.
So what happens is, so $8 per thousand over here on the mortgage versus $30 per thousand over here borrowed on credit cards. That's what makes credit card debt so expensive. Yes, the interest rate sucks, but it's the requirement to stay compliant that is what really makes it a problem. So as business owners grow, they grow with credit cards. They go, oh my gosh, what happens? And then they start making just minimum payments because they're growing faster, and they never find any permanent debt. And that's where they get in that trap. And that's what's called growing broke, where they're growing, but they're growing broke. They're like, wow, I've got all this money coming in. Where is it all going? Because I was making more money and keeping more money when I was actually smaller, when I had fewer revenues. So that's how that happens.
Outstanding. I think that Greg gave the thumbs up, so I think that's good. I'm glad we brought him up there. Cool. And the next one came from Jesse Phil Dorfel. How do you help married business owners protect their relationship while building a company? Thank you, Jesse Phil.
Yeah, man, I love this question. I think this is foundational, and not to get weird religion on you, but I can only explain how it worked for me. And I want to share with you that no judgment, please, but my wife and I were not honoring our vows in any way. We were both out doing our own thing. So I say that because we had no reason to survive. Like it was a nuclear train wreck in every way. And marriages have ended for far less, I'm sure. But putting God at the center of our relationship was what saved it. And there's no other way I can dress that up. Because when I went in and I wasn't living at home, I was living at my office and going to the gym and showering. It was just a miserable experience and and I didn't want to be divorced, but I couldn't go on the way we were going. And finally, we just got real clear about what we wanted our vision to be for our marriage. And that would be one thing, again, when I talked about personal vision early on, go back and discuss with your guy or your gal what you want, what's your vision for your marriage. And assuming that you both share a defined set of core values and your core values are in alignment, that was the one thing that I could say between, my bride and myself, Jen. We always shared the same set of core values. And because our core values were in alignment, there was something that was still workable, but we still made time for ourselves. And prior to Lily coming along, we had lunch with each other every day, and we didn't talk about business. We just sat and watched. I think Criminal Minds was the rerun of the day, and we had leftover spaghetti, and sometimes we talked and sometimes we didn't. But these were the things that we did, and we were really super intentional with our time not talking about business. Because here's what happens. When you are a married couple that is in business together and you have like a date night, that becomes a de facto board meeting for the business. And sometimes you have to work at this and have like a little cheat sheet of things that you can talk about, because the business is so easy to talk about because it's always there. And you're there at business, and one person's on the phone with an upset customer and the other person's trying to text a worker about, to take care of something else. But that's what I'm saying. Like, you've got to be I mean, you've got to be brutal about protecting that time. And when you're together, it doesn't become just this other board, this, like I said, this de facto board meeting of two people who are business owners talking about the business. You may as well just stay at home, or you may as well just go to the office and worked rather than go to Applebee's for date night.
Right. I think it's the same thing when you have coworkers and then you go out and all they want to do is talk about work.
Yeah.
It kind of blinds you to anything else that's out there, and you don't want to do that no more. So you get disenfranchised from being out with them. You have to find another friend group, basically.
Yeah.
So that you're talking about something other than work and complaining about the same things you complain in the office about while you're trying to have a good time.
Right.
We'll take one last question from the audience. This is from Karen from Kentucky. For someone feeling overwhelmed, what's the first step to reclaiming margin in their life? Thank you, Karen.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that when you're using the word overwhelmed, that's a strong word to me. And I think the main thing what I would do is I have to look, usually where overwhelm is coming in is because there's too much going on in my life. There's too many things in my life. And that's where that overwhelm, for at least for me, that's what's been true for me. So having a really clear vision for what I want, this is where I go back to vision again. And sometimes you have to recognize that there are certain things that you want, but they're not higher order things. So you might say, yeah, right. Like, I'll give you a great example. Like right now I'm in a PhD program, and they have it broken down into quarters, which I've never heard of that before, but this quarter it's kind of a ball breaker. Like this is a rough one, right? And then I have a residency right after that. Well, I may need a lighter quarter after this one because it's a lot and I'm missing a lot of time with family and all these different things. But I also recognize, like, hey, this is also the long game. If I needed to drop off one of my courses just because it's too much, I have no problem with that, right? I'm not quitting, right? But one course might just need to go away for this particular, or one course may need to go away for this particular quarter. But this is why I go back to my vision. And it's also important that I enroll other people into my vision. So this is important. So, Karen had mentioned that she's feeling overwhelmed. That tells me that she's probably got too much on her plate. And having too many priorities has the same impact as having no priorities. And it's important that you recognize what are the things that in your life that really aren't priorities, but they just keep showing up on your to-do list. So I think that overwhelm is really it's easy to feel and it's easy to experience, but it's so hard to get out of it because you're in the middle of it. And that's where you might need someone else to really help you. And it could be someone who is a good coach, a good friend, a good mentor, someone like that. You might not be able to see it yourself, Karen, because you're just too close to it. And maybe just even talking with someone, just chatting with someone about it would probably help you recognize what areas are adding to that overwhelm and they're really not adding to your life.
I think that's a great answer to that question. I wanted to bring up something you said earlier about not being a great student makes you a good teacher or coach, life coach, or strategic business coach. It's the same thing in the sports world. Those who are the worst players are usually the best coaches.
Yeah.
And those who can't coach, they teach gym. But it's just a weird synopsis that's almost in everything in life. If you're the person that's in the group that's not doing the best at it, you're usually the one that's going to be able to regurgitate what was taught to you because you might have been bored. It just wasn't doing anything for you at that time, but you were soaking it in.
Yeah.
So as we start to close here, Mark, we're 55 minutes in. We asked 2 questions to our guest as we start to wane off here. The first one is, what's the best way to get in contact with you? If any of the audience wants to get in contact with you, just to pick your brain like we did, or if they want you on their show, because a lot of them do have their own shows.
Yeah, I've got so my website is strategicboardroom.com. That's generally where a lot of easy ways to get in contact with me. I have a school, my school link is on there. So if anybody wants to go to school, it's SKOOL. You can find me on there, and it's a free community. So if anybody has any general questions, you don't have to pay anything to be in there. It's nice. It's school. I literally picked like the worst URL too, because I didn't realize I would ever actually have to say it. But
here we go.
But it's school.com/the-time-wealthy-advantage. So it's basically the book, but with dashes in the middle. But it's pretty easy to find me. And I'm also on all the socials. So if people reach out to me, just letting you know in advance, if you send me a friend request, I always say, who are you? Because I want to know who the heck you are, because apparently I'm a really big deal among fake accounts.
Wow.
Listen, man, I'm not here to brag, but I'm kind of a big deal among fake women accounts. That's
outstanding. That's something to get a trophy for, I think.
I feel that I should. I just feel like, at this point in my life that would do it for me. But just reach out. Don't be weird about it.
You can also get your book on your website as well, right?
Yeah, of course.
Awesome. Yes. All right. And our last question, this one might be a softball for you. What's 3 things the Misfit Nation, the audience, my other hosts can start doing tomorrow that can make them better humans?
I think first and foremost is have a God-centered life. And if you've got, and understand too, is that I recognize that there is a lot of trauma out there around religion and everything else, but just recognize that we have a God that loves you. And I think that's really important. And I'm not I'm not that guy. But I really recognize that when you realize the abundant love that's out there just for you, I would focus on that first and foremost, because everything else is just of this plane, of this domain, and it's going to fall away. Secondly, focus on that personal vision and take the time to do the damn work. Most people don't put together a personal vision because it is a lot of work. And they will also recognize that when you're putting that vision together, they start to recognize how much they don't necessarily like themselves. Because when you start to put together a plan, it starts to show you who you are. So, but force it through, like just take the time, keep doing it. And that will, and who you want, not necessarily what you want for your life, but what do you want your relationships to look like? What do you want your vision? What's your vision for your marriage? What's your vision for your relationship with your children? What's your vision for your relationship with God and other people that are super important to you? And I think lastly is just lean into learning, educate yourself with as much as you possibly can. There's a law called Ashby's Law of Requisite Variety. And Ashby's Law of Requisite Variety, what this means is that for any given problem, the system has to be more complex than the complexity of the problem. So when you're taking the time to educate yourself, if you feel like you're stuck in a rut, I always tell people, man, go open a book. Open a book that's going to expand your sphere, your knowledge, or something, because we have a really unusual spot on this planet that we can learn things, and we can continue to learn things from all the way to the day we die. And that is what's really cool about what we can do. So take the time to lean into your learning, and that's really going to expand your presence here and your sphere here. So those are my 3 things.
Outstanding. And I shared all 3 of them in the chat, typing as fast as I could as you were speaking. So I think I got all the words spelled correctly this time. Now that I have glasses on, I can see what I'm typing. So this is great. And you've shared all your links throughout the show, if your website plus all your socials that you shared with me.
Thanks.
It's all been shared in the chat. It's also in your website release is in the show description. Mark, thank you for hanging out with us tonight and sharing your wisdom with us.
It's been a true pleasure. Thanks for making it so fun, and thanks for your audience is they're smart folks. I can tell just based on the nature of their questions. I was like, wow, these are really good questions. So,
I don't even know what they're asking. What does that mean?
I am just so glad that, like, hey, a third grader that was sat next to you said you cheated on your English test, I'm just going to admit to it now. Like, yes, I did cheat, because there's no way I was going to pass otherwise. But thank you so very much.
This is awesome. You have a great night. Great. Stay warm, get out of the ice, and Misfit Nation, let's have a great weekend. Let's not have any bad news come up to us by Sunday night. Tune in Sunday night as we welcome U.S. Army veteran Sam Wan. She's going to tell us her story and share her journey to where she is now. Thank you for joining me and Mark tonight, and y'all have a great night and stay safe out there.
Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the Misfit Nation show. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com. That's themisfitnation.com. Check out all our past episodes and get some of the great Misfit Nation gear for you and your family. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling, because we are
Misfit Nation. Misfit Nation.